Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala to begin a very interesting journey of learning object oriented concepts in programming using C++. In today's session, we would try to see that what led to the creation of C++, that is the evolution of C++. We would also try to broadly understand two predominant programming paradigms, namely procedure oriented paradigm and object oriented paradigm. We would also try to understand the elements of object oriented programming. In today's time, computers, smart devices, computer applications have become way of life for everyone, and with the time we want these computer applications to do much more for us, more and more for us. We know that these computers, smart devices do a lot of things for us, but actually they are machines. They cannot do anything on their own. If we want these computers to do something for us or solve a problem for us, we need to give step by step solution to computer, stating that how that problem is to be solved, and what computer or device would do would simply follow these steps to get our problem solved. Now, to convey this step by step solution to the computer, we need to have some language, and we know that computers have their own language which comprises of two basic symbols 0 and 1, and we call that language as machine language. So, in the earlier days, at the time of invention of computers, the scientists or the programmers conveyed the step by step solution of the problem in hand to the computer in machine language. And this process of writing step by step solution in computer language is what is called is programming, and initially this programming was done, or this coding or writing of the program was done in machine language. With few hundred lines of code, this approach worked reasonably well, but as the size of program and the complexity of program increased, writing a program in machine language was not easy. Now, when it was not easy to write the program in machine language, as everything was to be written in zeros and ones, and when the size of program increases, this kind of program writing became very cumbersome, and finding errors also was a big task. So, in that scenario, another programming language was developed, which is called assembly language. Assembly language is close to machine language in a way that every assembly instruction has a one-to-one correspondence to the machine language, but it was easier to write program in assembly language because assembly language, instead of using 0101 kind of codes, use mnemonic opcodes. For example, if we want to perform an addition in machine language, the machine code for add operation would be some combination of zeros and ones, but in assembly language this instruction would be represented by a mnemonic opcode called add. So, relatively it was simpler to write the program in assembly language as compared to the machine language. But as the size and the complexity of the program kept on increasing, writing programs in assembly language also was not very convenient, rather it was a cumbersome job. So, this led to the development of higher level programming languages. A higher level programming language is closer to natural language. Most of these languages are closer to English. Since it is closer to natural language, it is easier for programmer to remember the constructs of the programming language, and also this language provides some level of abstraction which made it easier for a programmer to write code in higher level programming language. As higher level programming language is closer to natural language, it is farther from machine language, but it increases the productivity of the programmer, and the bridge or the gap between higher level programming language and machine language is bridged by the translator. So, a programmer writes a program in higher level language which a translator would convert into equivalent machine language. The initial few high level programming languages were BASIC, Fortran, COBOL, C. Fortran, COBOL kind of languages were problem oriented languages. For example, Fortran was created to solve scientific applications. So, it had more constructs which made it easy for us to write scientific applications, and COBOL was a business oriented language having features which supported the needs of a business oriented problem. C was a general purpose programming language. Fortran and COBOL kind of languages are no longer used because there are so many languages developed and which are much better than these languages, or more efficient, or these are the these languages makes it easier for any programmer to write that application. But C, a general purpose language, still remains to be one of the widely used languages in software industry. These languages that I have just mentioned are called procedure oriented programming languages, and procedure oriented programming languages are said to be languages which are not suitable for dealing with very big and very complex problems. And we know in today's time the kind of programs which are being developed are very big in size and they are very complex in nature. So, this procedure oriented paradigm was not found suitable to deal with these kind of languages, and which led to another programming paradigm called object oriented paradigm. So, few languages were developed which adopted object oriented approach towards solving the problem. Simula was one of such language which had support for object orientation. A pure object oriented model makes application development simpler, and application developed using such model is more maintainable, and it helps in managing the complexity well. But a pure object oriented language is not very efficient. So, C++ was inspired by C and Simula. It was inspired by C to retain the efficiency of the language, and it was inspired by Simula to have support for object orientation. So, C++ language had the support for object orientation, at the same time retaining the efficiency of C language. So, C++ was invented, and C++ was created by Bjorn Stroustrup. It was developed in 1979 at Bell Laboratories in New Jersey. The language was initially known as C with classes, but in 1983 the name was changed to C++ as the language was more than classes. It was created as an extension of C language and has the backward compatibility with the C. What we mean by this is that any valid C program is also valid C++ program. So, since it is developed as an extension to C language, it supports procedure oriented paradigm and it also supports object oriented paradigm. But first of all let us understand what we actually mean by procedure oriented paradigm and what we actually mean by object oriented paradigm. The procedure oriented programming or procedure oriented approach towards solving the problem relies on data and functions. It has data at one hand and it has functions at the other end. So, we need functions to perform the task and we need a data on which this operation needs to be performed, but in procedure oriented approach they are two different entities and they are loosely connected to each other. And the functions or the procedures that we define, the data moves freely amongst those procedures and it does, and there is no control over the way the data is processed or manipulated. However, the advantage of this approach is that it is intuitive, because that is how we intuitively think about solving a particular problem. Whenever we have a problem in hand, we try to see that what all tasks needs to be performed or what are the things that we need to do to solve that particular problem. So, in the procedure oriented paradigm, do the same thing, that we try to identify the various tasks that we need to perform, then we think that on what data would be required to perform these tasks, and then we pass that data to those functions and the function gives back the results that has been computed by that function, and the data is then passed on to another task and so on and so forth. We try to solve the problem. So, the data moves freely with not much control over the way the data is processed or the manipulated. So, we perceive the problem and its solution in terms of the task that needs to be performed, and at the other end we see that what data is required to perform those tasks, and these task and data remains loosely related, by and large separate entities in the application. Whereas, in object oriented paradigm, we do not try to look at the problem and solution as that what are the tasks which needs to be performed. We try to look at the problem as collection of entities. It is being seen as that we are developing a software for the system, and the system is made up of various entities, and to achieve the functionalities of that system, these entities interact with each other. So, in object oriented programming, the problem is perceived in terms of collection of entities, and these entities are represented by the attributes that defines that entity and the kind of operations that need to be performed on the attributes of these entity. We will see this with the help of example. The good part of the object oriented paradigm is that it is possible in this paradigm to hide the data which cannot be accessed by outside world, and by doing so it is possible for us to have a control over the way the data is processed or manipulated. And these entities that we try to identify then communicate with each other with the help of the functions. Now, let us say if in a system we identify two entities, entity A and entity B. To define these entities, we will first try to identify the attributes which would make the data part of that entity, and then we try to identify the functions or the tasks that need to be performed with on that data, and these two things together forms an entity. So, in the object oriented paradigm, we will try to identify all possible entities which are part of the problem or the application that we are trying to build, and now these entities will interact with each other through functions. Now, you would see here that this entity does not control or does not have an access to the data of this entity directly. This data is to be manipulated through this function. So, we have a control over the way we want this data to be processed. The data can be processed only the way this function is being defined to process or modify this. This entity directly cannot access or modify this data, it has to modify it through this function. So, this is the only way of modifying or processing that data, and this makes the object oriented paradigm a paradigm in using which if we build an application, the application becomes more maintainable. Now, let us try to understand the procedure oriented paradigm and object oriented paradigm with the help of an example. Let us say if we have to create an application which maintains a student data, let us see that if we follow the procedure oriented paradigm, how we would go about it, and if we follow an object oriented paradigm, how we would go about it. If we follow the procedure oriented paradigm, as I said before, we would first try to identify that what are the functions or tasks that we need to perform, and then we will try to identify for each task what kind of a data that is required. For example, here we see that for this application, we would first try to identify that what operations or task needs to be performed. Now, for application, let us say we need to read the student's data, we need to calculate the percentage of student, we need to later compute the grade of a given student, we need to generate the mark sheet for the student or the display student data, etc. There can be many more functions required. Once we identify the different tasks that need to be performed, we would then identify that to perform these tasks what data would be required, and we define the data accordingly. For example, for this application we may probably need the data like name of the student, roll number of the student, the course in which he is studying, the marks he has obtained, and so on so forth. Now, let us have a complete set of data and functions here. You may recall the struct or the structure of C. Here we can use that structure to define the data part of it, that is the various attributes that you want to define for students that we can define here, name, roll number, course, semester, marks, so on and so forth, whatever kind of data that we need, that we can define it over here. We have already identified the functions that we need to perform. Now, in the procedure oriented paradigm, these functions are separate entities and this data is separate entities. This function would perform operation on this data. So, what we do is we pass that data to these functions. For example, if we look at this read student function, this would read a student detail and it would return a variable holding the details of the student that we have read in this particular function. If we want to display the information of the student, we would pass the variable holding the data of that student and this function would display that information. If we want to calculate the percentage or the grade, we pass these details to that particular function using these details like marks and so on and so forth. It would be computing the percentage and the computed percentage would be returned, and for that also we may have a data where we store that percentage, grade, etc. And similarly, for creating a mark sheet also the data needed would be passed to that particular function. So, here we have functions as a separate entity, data as a separate entity, they are loosely connected, and for in every function we pass that particular data and the function returns certain data, and that is how the whole functionality is being achieved. If we look at the same problem in object oriented approach, or if we follow the object oriented paradigm to solve the similar problem, the way we look at the problem would be different, the way we look at the solution of the problem will also be different. How this will be different? Let us have a look. In case of object oriented paradigm, instead of first identifying that what are the tasks that we need to perform, we would try to identify the entities which exist in that system. For example, in this application, the main entity that we can see is a student. We can also try to identify other entities like a mark sheet. In an actual application, you would find many such entities which you would C as a part of that particular system, and the functionality of that particular function would be achieved by means of implementing or by means of interaction between the various entities that we have identified. Once we have identified the entity, for example, here we have identified the entity as a student, we would then identify that okay, there is an entity student which exists in the system, but then what defines the student? Now, see, a student in different application may be defined by different attributes. For example, in a university setup, we may require different attributes to define a student. To a membership of a generic library, we may require different attributes to define that student. So, looking at an application, we would have to identify that for this application, what attributes would define the entity. Now, let us say in our case, we identify the attributes like student ID, name, course, semester, marks. We can also have other entities like date of birth, their contact detail, so on and so forth. Depending on an application, we will have to determine that what attributes would define that entity. Now, after identifying these attributes, we would also have to identify the behavior or the operations which needs to be performed on these entities. And this attributes and the functions together would define an entity. So, a entity is defined as the attribute which defines the entity along with the operation that needs to be performed on those attributes together will form that entity. If we have a look at it, now both the things, that is attributes and the function, both are defined as a single entity. You would remember this struct of the C language. In C language, we were allowed to define only these data members, but in C++, structure can be extended to have even the functions as a member of the struct. So, here we are defining the student entity in more completeness. Here the data and the functions are no longer separate entities, they are bundled together in a single unit called structure. And in C++, we have another construct available called class. So, struct, that is an extended definition of structure in C++, or a class can be used to define entities. We would define every entity identified in this manner. We have identified the student entity, we define the attribute which defines it, and we also define the functions that are needed to be performed on this. If we identify a mark sheet, we will do the same thing for the mark sheet also. We will try to identify that what attributes are needed to define a mark sheet and what kind of an operation is required to be performed on the attributes of the mark sheet. So, basically if we look at it in procedure oriented paradigm, we started looking at the tasks that need to be performed, and once we identified the task, we identified the data that is needed for performing that particular task, and we identify the data that those functions need to be generated. But in object oriented paradigm, instead of looking at the task first, we try to look at the entities, the real world entities, and those real world entities are represented in the program either using a struct of C++ or a class, and that is how we actually define it. So, that is the difference between the procedure oriented paradigm and object oriented paradigm. Object oriented paradigm is considered to be a paradigm which is more suitable for writing applications which are big in size and which are very complex, because various elements or various elements of object oriented programming makes it easier to maintain a large and complex application, and it also helps in making the solution simpler. If application is very large and complex, if we follow a procedure oriented approach for it, the program may not remain as simple as it could be if we follow object oriented paradigm, and it may not remain as maintainable as a program that is written using object oriented approach. Therefore, now C++ has support for both. It has a support for procedure oriented programming, it also has a support for object oriented programming. Why I say so? Because C++ has a backward compatibility, which means a program that is written in C, which is valid in C, is also a valid C++ program. So, it is possible for us to use C++ to actually write a program which is procedure oriented. But if we are using a C++, we should use the power of object orientation, and we should try to build a solution which is object oriented. Now, when I say that object oriented application or a program that is written in object oriented way is more suitable for large or complex application, we need to understand that what are the elements of object oriented programming, or what are those elements which makes object oriented programming more suitable for larger application, and why does object oriented solution makes the application more maintainable when we have a very large and complex application in hand. So, let us try to have a broad understanding of elements of object oriented programming, that is the basic concept of object oriented programming. We will touch upon the object oriented concepts such as classes and objects, abstraction, reusability, inheritance and polymorphism. You have just got the flavor of what is class and what is object. Object oriented approach allows us to create more powerful data type called class. You would remember that in C, we create our own data type by means of enumerated data type, structures, unions, and to some extent constructs like type def. But the data type that we define in procedure oriented language, or the data type that we define in languages like C, we are only able to define the data aspect of that data type. But C++ allows us to create a more powerful data type, in a sense that along with the data part of the data type, we are also able to define the operations that are applicable on that data type. You would recall that to define a data type, we need to define two things. One, the data aspect of it, that is the kind of values the variable of the data type will be able to hold, and or we also need to define that what operations are valid on the variables of that data type. In C, using structure, we could define a data type wherein we specify that what kind of data that can be held in the variable of structure data type, but what operations that can be performed onto that data, we do not have a freedom to define that. In C++, with the help of extended definition of structure or a new construct called class, it is possible for us to define a more powerful data type. The class in the C++ defines the blueprint of a real world entity, and whenever we need to store the data of that kind, we can create a variable of that type. Let us take an example. For example, if I am creating an application where I need to store the time, if you try to have a look at the built-in data types, you would not be able to find any built-in data type where you can store the time as a single entity. We have to resort to the ways that we define 3 integer variable, while one holds hours and another holds minute and another holds second, but these 3 will be separate variables and not integrated together. if we, since these three different variables are related to each other, the better approach that we would follow in C would be to define a structure which has these three members, hours, minutes and second. So, at least these three are represented by a single variable, but here we will be able to specify the data as a single unit, but again what kind of an operation that we want to be performed on the time variable, that we would not be able to define. But in C++ we can define a more powerful time data type. Let us have a look at it. If you recall the structure of C, you would see that we can define a structured data type which can have these three data members, but what operation that we can perform on those data members cannot be defined by structure. But in C++ in class we can define both the things, data aspect of it which says that the variable of class time can hold this kind of value. Apart from this, we can also define that what are the valid operations that can be performed on this data type. So, in that way in C++ we are able to define the data type in a more complete fashion. If we look at this class time, we would be able to see that this time is not a variable, this is a new data type. So, by defining a class, what we are defining is a new data type which can have this data in the variable of data type time, and these are the valid operations that we will be able to perform on these data types. Now, this concept of class allows us to have very important phenomenon in the application, namely encapsulation and data hiding. Encapsulation refers to putting everything related to a single entity in a single capsule. In our case, what we want to define for an entity is a data and the operations that need to be performed onto data, and as we have seen in the time class example, we are able to put the data and the operations in a single capsule, and that is what we call is the encapsulation. So, encapsulation refers to combining both data and function that manipulate the data together. This encapsulation leads to another important object oriented programming concept called data hiding. This encapsulation enables us to hide certain data elements. Hide in this case means that we can restrict the outside world to directly access those data item. Let us see this with the help of an example. Now, in our class time, we would see that we have the data, three data members in the class time, and with access specification we can specify that this data members are private to this class. When we say that this is private, which means that these data members are only available to the members of this class, that is the functions which are member of class time only can access these data items, but any other function outside this class, that is any other function other than these 4 functions which are member of time class, will not be able to directly access it. If they want processing or modification of these data members, that can only be done through these functions. So, you would see that here we are able to control the way the data is processed and manipulated, and this control makes the application more manageable. Why? Because now the data is not freely flowing across the functions, and every function does not have a freedom to process and modify the data the way they want it. The one who has defined that class has defined that only this is the way in which the data should be processed, and this is the way through which the data should be modified. Now, there is no other way to process or modify the data in any other fashion. Anybody would process or modify the data using these functions. So, whatever way we have defined inside that function, whatever way of processing and modification of data that we have defined within that function, the data will be processed or modified only in that particular fashion. Outside function have absolutely no control over the way the data is manipulated, and that makes it this phenomenon, encapsulation and data hiding, makes the application extremely maintainable, and it gives an edge over procedure oriented programming, where the data is freely flowing, no control over the way the data should be processed or modified. So, maintenance is a big is more complex, because we need to, we do not know that what function is modifying the data in what fashion, and what function is processing the data in what function. Here we have had a central control over, we will have a central control over the way the data should be processed or manipulated. So, we do not need to worry as to how outside functions are modifying or manipulating the data, because they cannot modify or manipulate the data in their own way. If they want the processing of data or modification of the data, they have to take help of the members of the class. So, only the members of the class have a right to modify or process the data, and the way they have been defined to process or modify the data, that is the only way in which the data can be processed or the modified. But that would only be possible when we make the access specification as private. If we make these data members also public, then they will be available to outside functions also, and then we would not be able to take the full advantage of encapsulation, and we would not be achieving the data hiding, and the advantage that we can have of object orientation we would not be able to utilize. Another interesting concept in object oriented programming is abstraction. The idea of abstraction is to have a higher level look at the task. With data abstraction, we can focus on what operation needs to be performed on the data without bothering about how these operations are implemented. That data abstraction also allows us to create our own data type, of course using class as we have seen before, where we can define the variable and operations on this new data type, and we call this data type as abstract data type also. Now, again let us come back to our time class example. Once the programmer has defined this time class, it can be used by that programmer, and it can also be used by the other programmers which need to store the time, or who need to manipulate the time. This class is being defined by programmer 1, and he has defined that how time object can be added, how the time objects can be subtracted, how the time object is to be read, how time object is to be displayed. Now, I as a user of this class do not need to go into the detail of that how time objects are to be added or how time objects are to be subtracted. If I need to deal with time, what I simply need to do is I need to create a variable of this time class, which is popularly called object. Object is a variable of time class. So, what I simply need to do is I need to create an variable of this time class, and then I need to invoke those functions to perform the tasks such as adding 2 time objects or subtracting 2 time objects. Here, to add 2 objects, I do not need to go into the detail of how these operations are being performed, and this phenomenon makes the application or helps in managing the complexity in the application. Because at this particular point I want to my focus is on performing certain operations. if I also need to get into the detail of how objects are to be added, and the calculation that I need to perform requires objects to be added, objects to be objects to be subtracted. If I need to get into the detail of how time objects is to be added and how objects time objects to be subtracted, I would be deviating from my primary task that I was trying to perform. But here my primary task requires me to add 2 time objects or subtract 2 time objects at different points, but with the help of this class I would simply do this job by invoking these functions, and I do not need to get into detail, or I do not need to get into the complexity of knowing that how these time objects can be added or subtracted. So, it is saving me from adding on more complexity to the problem that I am trying to address at that particular point. So, I can focus on the problem that I am focusing, and I can this complexity is hidden from me, making the task become little simpler and easier for me to manage. Now, this abstraction concept is not absolutely new in object oriented paradigm. You would recall that in C also you have used many built in functions or standard library functions. The most commonly used functions that you had were scanf function and the printf function. These two functions you use to read the variables and to display the variables. As you may recall that for programmers perspective, read write operations are the simplest one, but if you look at the internal functioning, these two operations are very complex one, because they require the intervention of operating system, they require the involvement of device driver and the device controller and so on and so forth. So, whenever we want to read something, the application generates an interrupt to operating system would then take help of device driver, and then device driver in turn would take help of the device controller, and then it is a huge process that actually goes in. But for us, those complexities are hidden inside those scanf and printed function. So, these functions provide us some level of abstraction, that is, we are presented this particular task as a higher level of abstraction, and the details details are hidden inside. And to be able to use these two functions, I am not required to know that how reading is being done or how the writing is being done. It makes my job simpler and it helps me manage the complexity. So, that way the standard library functions or the use of function per se is a tool to achieve the abstraction, but the abstraction in C++ is more stronger because of this class construct and encapsulation and data hiding. This abstraction becomes far more powerful, and it is easier for us to create more and more data type which hides the internal details and help us maintain the complexity in much better fashion. Abstraction is an excellent tool for managing complexity, and a well designed abstraction can make complex and large size problems simpler and manageable. The tools are provided to us, but as it always goes like that the tools would give us true benefits, true advantages if we use the tool in the right fashion. So, abstraction if implemented properly can be is a very powerful tool and can help us make an application which is very well designed and which helps look the problem simpler and which helps us to create an application which is much more maintainable. Another object oriented concept is reusability. Reusability refers to reusing the existing class. For example, once we define a time class, as we have seen in the earlier example, if in any application we need a time object, then we can need to instantiate this class. We do not need to define the class again. Again, I would say that reusability is not a new concept, or it is not completely missing in procedure oriented programming languages. For example, in C also the standard library functions are the example of reusable code, because those functions are being written by some person once at some point of time. Now, every application which requires these operations to be performed simply needs to include those functions in their programs and make a call to that function. They do not need to rewrite that function again and again. So, that makes our job very simple. I would give an example that if we have to compute the square root of a number, what do? We call the standard library function sqrt, and to get the square root computed, we actually do not need to know that how square root is computed. And I have seen that many a times a person who uses a square root would knows that what is square root, but if they are being asked to write the program to compute the square root, they may not instantly do that, because everybody does not remember that how the square root to be calculated. So, what they would need to do, that apart from the complexity of their application, they will also have to go into the complexity of learning and knowing that how a square root is to be computed and then implemented and then finally use in that particular program. But if we have a ready function available, the programmer can focus on his task. He does not have to get into the details of how a square root is to be computed. So, reusable components are there with the object oriented procedure oriented programming languages also, but again in C++ the reusability is I would say that it allows the features which can allow us to create more strong and more powerful reusable components. C++ strongly supports reusability, as I told you before, that time class once defined can be used as many times in as many applications as we want. We would not have to recreate that data type again. That data type is created once and we can use it in any number of applications that we want to do it. Apart from that, C++ also supports reusability through inheritance and standard template library. Inheritance allows a class to reuse data and methods for existing classes. Standard template library contains built-in classes which can be used in any C++ application. This standard template library contains the general purpose classes such as stack, vector, queue, which means that any class, any application which requires the use of these data structures such as stack and queue would find very well and created or generic data types such as stacks and queues. So, if their application requires the use of these kind of data structures, the programmer does not require to spend energy and time in creating those data types or creating those functions and data. It can use from that standard template library and can focus onto their primary job, and without getting into the detail of how element is inserted in queue or removed from a queue. They simply can use a predefined data type, instantiate it, create a variable of queue type, and then using the functions defined in that particular class, they can get the various functions on this data structure such as stack and queue performed. So, it is helping us in managing the complexity, because this complexity at this particular moment has been hidden from us, that is we do not need to get into that. So, the amount of things that we need to deal with at a given point of time gets reduced. We do not get into, let us say for example, if we are writing the program for converting an infix notation to the postfix notation, and if we require the use of stack for that, if I already have a predefined data type called stack available with me, I just can focus on my job of conversion from infix to postfix, and do not need to get into the detail of that how stack needs to be managed and how to insert an element in a stack and how to remove an element from the stack, and it actually would help reduce the complexity for me, because those things already available. So, I can just reuse it. I only need to create the conversion part only, and the rest of the data structures which I need as a support to perform that particular job are already available to me, which I can reuse. So, this makes the whole thing much more simpler for me, and the complexity is reduced, the problem looks simpler because of reusability, and because of reusability the efforts are also reduced. I can complete that job in a faster fashion, because there were many things which I did not have to redo. There somebody had done it and I am just simply reusing it. So, my time spent on doing that particular job also gets reduced. Another object oriented concept is inheritance. You would see that in real world objects do not exist in isolation. The basic idea of inheritance is defining a new object in terms of an existing object. Here also the advantage of this feature is code reusability and maintaining an hierarchical relationship, and also inheritance would help and support another object oriented concept called polymorphism. We are going to discuss about inheritance in detail in later modules. Then another object oriented concept that helps us make the application simpler or help us manage the complexity in a better way and making our code compact and easy to understand is one which is called polymorphism. The literal meaning of polymorphism is one name multiple forms. In programming, it would mean that one function call may result into different behaviors in different instances. Now, this phenomenon helps in making user defined data type more powerful. How this phenomenon makes the user defined data type more powerful, that we will discuss in successive modules and successive lectures. But in nutshell, these object oriented concepts or the elements of object oriented programming like classes, objects, encapsulation, data hiding, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism makes the solution of a problem more organized, look simpler, and it makes it much more maintainable. So, let me summarize that what we discussed today was that C++ is actually created as an extension of C language, and it also has a backward compatibility with C. C++ model is not pure object oriented model, and it actually gives the power of both procedure oriented and object oriented programming. The basic building blocks of C++ called classes allow us to create more powerful data type, and there are many facilities which C++ provides us, so that these classes can be created in such a fashion that the data type that we create using these classes are very powerful. Not only powerful, we can make them as strong as built-in or very close to the strength that a built-in data type has. We also briefly broadly tried to understand the elements of object oriented paradigm such as encapsulation, data hiding, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, etc., which makes the language suitable for large software development. What lies ahead is a very interesting journey through which we would try to see that what facilities C++ gives us to make the solution of any problem in hand very elegant and a solution that makes even a big size problem and a complex problem fairly manageable with the help of strong data types that we are able to create in C++. So, friends, we will continue our journey of learning this very interesting and efficient programming language called C++. So, I look forward to meet you in the next module. Till then, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.